And now, the main event, where tonight's entertainment is the review of entertainment. We like movies, we like television, and we like overthinking it. Introducing the podcast of critics.
Welcome to the show. It is, once again, the podcast of critics. I'm Garrett.
I'm Ashley.
And we're back with
We're back.
a brand new series. 2 in the can, 1 more to go.
No.
We're back. So this series we are currently doing, starting now, is 90s disaster movies. Kicking it off with Twister to sort of capitalize on the new movie coming out, Twisters, plural, which I like. It reminds me of Aliens and Alien, which we'll talk about that in a second as well. So Twister, great movie, 90s disaster movie, great period of movies, but before we talk about the movie proper, we like to start these series off and sort of talk about the premise of the series as a whole, right? Just
Yep, this is all you, though.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you how you feel, what your familiarity is, and how you feel about disaster movies as a genre.
As a genre?
Yeah.
Well, this one was very nostalgic, and I didn't realize that it was, to tell you the honest truth. I thought I had not seen it, and then I realized I had. As a whole, does like Final Destination count as a disaster movie? I don't feel like
I would call it as like a supernatural horror. Does that maybe the first one because there is like an airplane crash?
Yeah, so
But the rest of them not so much.
Yeah, I like thrillers to a certain extent. I don't like horror thrillers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we differ in that.
We definitely differ in that. But I do like to be on the edge of my seat. I like the dramatic thrillers. I like to sit there and try to predict what's happening or what's going to happen. So the disaster part of it, very cool. I think that they're more fun because there is a realism aspect to them. Usually, I mean, yeah, sure, they're fantastical, right? Like, it's a movie.
Yeah.
But as a whole, I think that the plausibility of it gives it more of a scare factor to me than any horror movie could.
Okay.
And I like that better.
Yeah, it grounds you enough to where you're able to. It has a more better impact on you.
Right.
Gotcha.
And it just like it's fun. It's just fun.
See, I am not. It's watching this. I actually had a really good time because I don't think I had seen Twister before. I had through like pop culture osmosis and through being my first exposure to it was the Universal Studios ride attraction, whatever it is, which is a very cool attraction down there. I've only ever been once, but that's really the
Had a lasting impact.
Yeah, it's the main one I remember. That and the Mummy ride are the only 2 that I really have a memory of, and the Men in Black thing. That was good.
Okay.
But when it comes to disaster movies, I don't. My gut feeling is not a fan, and that's because I'm not a fan of like man versus nature.
Why? Tell us why.
It feels like an impersonal thing. Like it's man versus man. If it's
I
like
like the impersonal of it.
Really?
I like that it gives it does not care who you are or where you come from or any of that. It affects us all.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah, I get that. On a story level, it's like I go back to Titanic a lot, which is one I considered.
I guess that is a disaster movie, no?
Yeah, no, it is. I considered putting it in this series, but then I was like, we'll save that for later once we get better at this. Basically, it's like that's a big movie that deserves like proper attention.
It was a 2 VHS movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Have you seen that guy on like TikTok who just collects VHSs?
No.
He just has a wall of them. It's hilarious.
That's awesome.
But Titanic, I loved the first like half of Titanic, where it's like a romance and it's this period drama,
right?
And it's funny and it's it's got all that. It's got good character work and stuff. I like that, and I would always be mad because whenever I would like Titanic would happen to be on TV and I'd catch it,
you always got the second half.
It was the second half when the ship's already sinking. And I was like, man, I missed the good part. Not that the ship sinking is bad. Obviously, it's a great technical achievement of movie history and everything. But it's like, all right, it's sinking. Let's go. All right, the tornado's happening. All right, the plane is crashing. Whatever it may be. The conflict of it is very impersonal. And even in this movie, we see that we always have to add some more character drama-y stuff and even a human villain, just like the fiance in Titanic or
Oh,
the
I
evil
see.
scientist in this one, to introduce a little bit of man versus man or a little bit of character drama in it to ground it and bring it to more of a traditional story where it's not just a guy fighting an animal or a storm or whatever.
I guess you don't have quite as much dialogue if it's just you're just fighting a nature event.
Yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily need dialogue, but I think it's just, so my gut feeling about disaster movies are not like my favorite genre or anything. So I was pleasantly surprised that I really had a great time with this one.
That's good. So maybe the next two will be good too.
Well,
We'll see.
maybe maybe we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see. But yeah, let's get into Twister. This is 1996.
So for those of you who were planning to watch Twisters, obviously we were recording this pre-release of that. So
It should be, this should be out, hopefully, if all goes well, right before the new movie releases and in theaters.
Right.
And we were talking
So
like, we
this
got to
is-
go see that one
So
now.
according to Wikipedia, Twisters, the second one,
With a Z.
with a Z, is a standalone sequel. So, but it is a sequel. So I'm wondering how that ties back in. It's not immediately obvious by like character names or anything. So that's kind of interesting. But anyhow, getting into it, we've got a pretty star-studded cast, and we noticed this kind of off the cuff, really.
Yeah, the 90s, like the disaster movie is like one half of the series. The 90s is the other half of it. So a lot of like faces of the 90s across all the movies we're going to be
they're
talking about
cool.
here.
They're great to see. It's nice to see them,
We've got Bill Paxton,
which is our main guy.
Bill, also playing Bill.
Yeah, Bill Paxton playing Bill Harding.
He's great. I know him primarily from Aliens, which like I said, great movie, as well as Apollo 13. Also one of my favorite movies. I love Apollo. Like that's a great movie. Going back to the Ocean's movies where I talked about competency porn,
Right?
that Apollo 13 is a great example of that.
I see what you mean.
Where people are just solving problems like throughout that entire movie.
Right.
So he's great in that, and he's like the prologue guy in Titanic as well. Like the main guy who like
Really?
finds the wreck and is talking to old Rose throughout the movie. Yeah.
Okay.
So he died a couple of years ago of a stroke.
2017.
Yeah, real
Yeah.
bummer. So he's a great actor, and this is probably the main one I imagine that he's known for like headlining. So I think he narrates the ride too at the
That's
Universal
cool.
thing.
That's
Yeah.
really nice, actually. And then we've got Helen Hunt, who is his soon-to-be ex-wife. We know her from
A couple things. Most recently, I think she was in the Batman v Superman. Or maybe that's Holly Hunter. I think
No,
I get
it's
her
the-
and Holly Hunter
the-
confused.
Yeah, the alliteration.
Yeah, that's
what.
all it is. But I know her from As Good as It Gets, which is another. I keep naming like favorite. These people are in some of my favorite movies. As Good as It Gets, which is a fantastic rom-com starring her and Jack Nicholson, who also shows up here, kind of, sort of.
Yes.
We'll get to it. Great rom-com with the two
I
of
know
them.
her from Soul Surfer. She was the mom.
Is that the
which-
one with the girl loses her arm?
Yes.
Ah.
The Bethany Hamilton story,
Okay.
based on a true story.
Gotcha,
Bethany Hamilton
gotcha.
story. Yes, that one. And then she was also most recently in World on Fire, Shots Fired on TV.
I want to say she's won an Oscar at some point. If not, she's definitely been nominated.
She had to have.
Yeah, she's great. She's fantastic. A bunch of other just like supporting character actors of the 90s who like show up in various shows and TVs. Obviously, we got Philip Seymour Hoffman, as well as Dusty, who's kind of our main comic relief, who
He-
also sucks that he died recently. Not super recently, but a couple years ago too.
He shows up as quite the sad, like it's really. So of course he died while right in the middle of the Hunger Games saga too.
Oh, right, before you could finish filming it, I think. Yeah.
So that was hard, and that's really where we came to love him. I
That's where,
think.
well, for like our generation, maybe. I'm not a big Hunger Games person, but that's where he's like reintroduced to that generation.
You're shooting yourself in the leg over here, man. I don't know.
I like Aliens. I don't like Hunger Games. That's all you need to know about me.
I guess.
But he is like the character actor probably of like the 90s and 2000s and stuff. So he's a ton of like, it would be here forever. We talked about every movie he's done, but definitely reintroduced at least in relevancy to like our generation through Hunger Games, which
Yes.
he didn't manage to finish. I think they
Well, they
saved
posthumously
it in the edit or something.
Yeah, they posthumously released and posthumously fixed it. So,
Mm-hmm.
but that was a hard thing to deal with. And then we have Rabbit,
Who's one of the crew of the
yeah, he's our navigator.
Chaser.
His name we know him specifically. Can you do it? Can you do the voice?
as Cameron in Ferris Bueller.
Can you do the voice though?
Well, my brother does a good one.
His name is Alan Ruck. But
Alan Ruck. Okay, so he does an impression of the principal in Ferris Bueller. Let me see if I can do it. Sorry, Ferris's dad. He does an impression of Ferris's dad talking to the principal.
no, the girl's dad. Anyways, it doesn't matter.
Rooney, I want you to get outside, and I want to be there to shake your hand. I want my daughter outside in 5 minutes, Rooney.
There you
That's
go.
what
You
that's
got
his-
it. You got it. You got
yeah.
there.
He actually does an incredibly emotional performance in that movie, but as well, like
He
not to
does.
undersell him that he's just
no,
funny.
No,
you know?
he's fantastic. He has such a recognizable face too that
Yeah.
he's one of those ones where it's just you see him on screen, you're like ah. Well, I do anyways.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of that, just of a who's who of like, oh yeah, he's been in things. Oh, that guy's been in things.
Right. So we've got a lot of recognizable crew on the good side of the crew of the storm
Oh yes,
chasing
and
crew.
our main villain, kind of, sort of,
Uh-huh.
other than
Go
the
ahead.
tornadoes, is Carrie Elwes, if I'm saying that last name correctly.
Elvis.
Ellis, who is obviously famous for Princess Bride, Robin Hood Men in Tights,
Saw.
Saw, love Saw.
El Enchanted.
So he's great.
No
Most
Strings
recently, he
Attached.
showed up in Stranger Things, I think season 3, as like a smarmy mayor, which is also a good turn, a villainous turn for him.
Evidently, he was also in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which I have seen several times and have never clocked him.
Oh, really? Yeah.
We'll have to go back and find it. We've got him on the other side. He's got a crew as
Who don't
well.
get as much focus,
But
but
you,
know.
for those who are like huge trivia folks, one of his most recognizable crew members is Artie Horn. Also plays as Artie Hornbacher, in Scandal, who stole the spying on Americans technology from the NSA. I want to say.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah,
That whole saga.
it was at least a 2-episode deal.
Okay.
So for those who
Those scandal heads out there.
yeah, I don't know what they're called. Those who live in Shondaland delusionally and get our hearts broken regularly.
Gotcha.
He's in here too.
Okay.
And then I did want to point out that young Joe, who was played by Helen Hunt, is Joe.
Oh, okay, yes.
Young Joe is Alexa Vega, which
Is that Spy Kids?
yep.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I know Alexa
this
Vega.
This was pre Spy Kids, but yes.
Yes. Well, I know her primarily now from Repo the Genetic Opera, which is an
Oh.
obscure indie goth rock musical movie.
right.
So she's great. And she can sing in that. She sings in that. It's very good.
She's always been able to sing. I think she was Nickelodeon, not Disney. But
Yeah, that sounds right.
she was one of those, and she did sing.
Had a little teeny bopper career or whatever.
Very slight, but it was there.
Yeah.
It was. Well, no, in one of the Spy Kids movies, she had to sing.
Oh, yeah.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow.
That'll be a trilogy at some point.
Oh, sure.
The Spy Kids, sure.
Oh, sure. Because homie bagged Megan Trainor.
Oh, right. Yeah. All about that face.
So, anyways, so that's your cast.
On the production side of things, I think, what was our director? Jan DeBont?
John DeBont.
John DeBont, who he's done
Probably Jan, honestly.
maybe produced by Steven Spielberg and
Executive-
Amblin.
Executive producer.
Yeah, and you can tell this has a Spielberg feel to it, even being what it is. And written, this is the interesting thing because you said it felt very Jurassic Park to you, and that is because written by Michael Crichton and his wife,
And Marie Martin.
who is the author of Jurassic Park, and I believe he worked on the screenplay for Jurassic Park the movie as well.
Oh.
So that's why it feels very Jurassic Park. It's got that vibe to it.
Well,
too.
because I was making the connection to Helen Hunt being very Laura Dern-esque.
Yeah.
And then the costuming, which we are in currently as
Yeah.
we record this.
yeah, we took some promo stills for this episode, and we're still on the same
Dressed.
day we're recording for you. So yeah,
That is our cast. That's our setup. Do you want to dive into plot now?
Yeah, let's
Are
go.
you ready?
Let's go.
Well, I did want to point out one more thing.
Okay.
Music.
Yeah, who did the music for this?
Music was by Mark Mancina.
Sounds very familiar as well.
He is a veteran of Hans Zimmer's Media Ventures. I
Okay.
don't know what that means.
Okay. That's just his little composing group, I believe. His like company and stuff.
I see. But also, the Van Halen was contracted to do
The soundtrack?
some songs, to write a few songs for this,
Gotcha.
which they did they played at the beginning and they played at the end.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it. This movie's very efficient with its use of music.
But lots of rock music in the album, using things like using folks like the Goo Goo Dolls.
Are they in here?
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
They are Stevie Nicks, Shania Twain.
A lot of 90s soft rock is playing in the background of quite a few scenes.
Yes. Yeah. But anytime you hear a guitar rip, it's probably Alison Krauss is part of this too. If you Red Hot Chili Peppers, good lord. But anytime you hear
Also
guitar,
just a who's who of just 90s folks. Yeah.
So this is set up to be epic. So let's get into it.
And it's still the fact that this hasn't gotten a reboot or sequel or anything until this year.
Because they wanted to do the sequel right too.
Like this has stood on its own as a epic for going on like probably I don't know 30 years now
How
or
old
so
are we?
whatever. 20. Oh yeah, I guess this came out in 96. So
Yeah.
yeah, so 20 Jesus.
28
Fuck.
years.
Yeah.
This is really sad actually for us.
Anyway, the movie starts
So we start out
dope title sequence. Dope title sequence.
dope title sequence.
Where like the letters are like blowing in with the storm.
And they 3D blow out.
Yeah, and it's the computer, the CGI in this movie still holds up for the most part very well. And this is a beautifully like animated title sequence.
Right?
It's immediately brands itself as like the tornado movie.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Very easily.
Yeah.
So we started in June 1969. There is an F5 tornado outside. They're on the TV. They're on the radio telling everyone to take cover. I didn't know they had color TV in 69.
Sure. Like 69, not like 52.
All right. So it's still new.
It's still new, yeah. It is kind of strange they got it all the way out here in farm country, but,
Yeah.
you know, for plot.
But we are in Oklahoma, Twister town, basically, as far as
Twister Town.
geographically.
Right, yeah. It's very, very Midwest movie, for sure.
There's this family. Dad's downstairs. Mom's kind of upstairs. Kid's upstairs sleeping with a dog on her bed.
Yep.
This is important.
The movie almost gets very dark. It does get very dark very quickly.
No, it gets
Yeah.
very dark very quickly. So they say take cover now, take shelter now. Very Southern accents, but not in the way that we have Southern accents, but more so in the way the Midwest has Southern accents, which is a very different thing.
Yeah.
Run to take cover. We are stressed because Mom goes upstairs to grab the kid.
Yeah. Joe, who's one
Alexa
of our...
Vega.
Yeah.
The dog, which I think was a Yorkie, is just chilling on the bed.
Toby.
Does not fucking move initially, which I have
It's
Velcro
a little dog.
I have a Velcro dog. So I don't understand this like independent dog thing.
No, this is true because I have a big dog who's like part golden retriever, and I have a smaller dog as well who is part dachshund, and she isn't scared of anything. Like whenever like we just had the 4th of July
Fireworks?
whenever fireworks or like thunder's happening, the big dog is terrified. Little dog doesn't give a shit.
I have
Like she's just like this dog where she's just hanging out. She's chill as it can be.
I have a pit Staffy mix, and she is terrified of everything, but she will she has the gumption to at least like talk about it though, because she'll yell. Like she's like rah, rah, rah.
Shouts into the void.
Shouts into the void. So she is scared, but she will bark at it.
This tracks for a small dog though. I don't like small dogs don't have that survival instinct.
They're just
as
like,
much. They're
la,
just
la,
like,
la,
"Ah."
I'm here.
Yeah.
So Mom picks up the kid, and they're running outside to the storm cellar, which I read about in books. But me personally, I don't understand a storm cellar.
We're Florida people. We barely have second-story houses.
We probably should have storm cellars with the amount of hurricanes we have.
We do. Yeah, it is kind of strange they haven't caught on here. But maybe our ground isn't secure enough to dig into.
That's true. It's sand. It's not like dirt like anywhere else.
Yeah, we don't have a true underground around here, I guess.
That's true.
But I love how this is shot.
Yeah, because we don't have basements either.
I love the lighting in this. How like the lightning is striking and like will occasionally illuminate the faces and stuff like that. Like this, and I also like this too, because like the movie's called Twister, and it's like you're immediately gonna see one.
Oh yeah.
It's like it doesn't build up to it. It doesn't like nope.
Well, you immediately see one in the opening title sequence with the thing opening out.
Right. Well, but then this opening scene too, just immediately is like we're getting straight into the action here. We're not going to make you wait for this.
Yeah.
Which the movie is paced very well this way, where it makes sure that like you're in a movie to see Twister, you are going to see Twisters.
Yeah.
Don't you worry about it.
Right. They're going outside to the storm cellar. Storm cellar is basically just a hole in the ground with a door.
For those of you like us who don't have them.
I really don't know what that means, man. They get in, but the dog, who has little legs too, is still inside.
It does chase after them eventually.
Well, she's yelling Toby the whole way that she's being carried outside.
They leave the dog in.
So stressful. But the door's open, so the dog makes it just in time. You know, they get the doors closed just as it's starting to come over. Dad goes to hold the door closed
because the hinge still comes off or whatever.
The lock latch.
Yeah.
Looks like it's gonna bust, and so he's holding it, and he turns back and he says, "I can't hold it," which he barely even gets those words out, really.
And then he's gone.
And then he flies away.
Yeah. And this is dark as hell.
And then the little girl,
because he just disappears. He just fades into the distance. He's gone.
And then the little girl tries to run after him.
Yeah.
Cannot do so. And at this point, so the door has come completely off its hinges, so you just see the like swirling sky.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then we cut to
a very great.
It says present day.
Yeah. So 2024.
No, 1996.
1996.
We're in the National Severe Storm Laboratory.
Well, first we see what is probably like the worst shot of the movie, unfortunately, is like a bad CGI satellite passing over like a bad CGI Earth.
Oh, that's true.
So, but it's fine. Like the movie more than makes up for this one kind of dud of a shot.
Well, it still establishes that we have stuff in the sky that, you know, looks over our weather patterns and
right.
stuff.
It catches you up to the technology and stuff.
The Earth isn't flat, you know, all that.
Yeah.
We zoom into the National Severe Storm Laboratory. They're putting out reports that they've got
there's like a record outbreak of
tornadoes coming through in the next couple days. Mm-hmm. And then we cut to
this great Western music type theme. It sounds from what is it, Mancini?
Yeah.
So it sounds like a 50s Western. Mancina. It sounds like a beautiful, like not Seventh Samurai, the Magnificent Seven. It sounds like that classic 50s Western, like whatever. It's beautiful.
Once more again?
No.
With feeling?
No. But and we get so many of these just awesome sweeping aerial shots across like the fields of Oklahoma.
Yes.
And you know, we end up landing on the red truck that will follow throughout the rest of the movie, which is carrying our other two characters here, Bill
and Melissa. And Melissa is talking to him about, you know, are you sure you're going to be okay to see her again? Whatever. Meanwhile, they pull up on a field.
A base camp.
Yeah.
Where the storm chasing crew of Joe are in the middle of like prepping their day to go out and chase all these tornadoes and stuff.
And as soon as Bill pulls up and hops out of the truck, Bill's back.
He's back. They're all super hyped to see him.
The whole crew knows him, so it's very clear we've got history. And that's a really great way to establish, I wanted to point that out, really great way to establish camaraderie and to establish that there's history there without having to, like, narrate that there's history.
Yeah, there's no clunky exposition in this one at all, actually. No. It's all done super naturally. Because we're introduced to the crew. We got Philip Seymour Hoffman as Dusty.
He immediately runs up. He's the first one up.
Just glad-handed. Be like, dude, the Extreme. They call him the Extreme.
Yes.
You're back.
The Extreme is back.
Yeah, and which is a running gag is that he's like, I'm not back.
Yeah, he keeps saying, I'm not back. I'm not back. Okay, but he's back.
Yeah.
And then you've
this
got
is
Rabbit, who comes up to some of the other guys.
just a bunch
come
of
up.
other. There's too many guys to keep track of.
Yeah.
But we're not gonna harp on it. But her whole crew is here. And this is too where we talked about where like the background music is just like whatever's playing on the radio. It's like some 90s soft rock, which feels, it's a nice diegetic way to like put you in the scene with them.
Yes.
It feels immersive. It feels like you're just hanging around this camp overhearing these conversations.
Yeah, you're just an observer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so you meet everybody. Dusty says something to the effect. Well, he also introduces Melissa as he goes.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, she's not just waiting in the truck. And
Who
the whole reason why they're there is because they have to get the divorce papers so that Melissa and Bill
can get married. Yeah.
And Melissa's kind of shocked that Joe still has the divorce papers.
It's implied that she's been sitting on this for like
At least
several months.
Yeah. At least. Which is nuts.
Right.
Well, not that nuts, but it's still.
I think it's interesting that it's the woman holding it up. Usually,
Why?
I think because usually in movies and
Because
stuff.
usually we're cold-hearted bitches.
No. And even if you were, I'm okay with that. But
Help.
ladies.
I am unwell.
Usually in the movies and stuff, it's the guy who like doesn't want to let go and who still is like holding on to the failed marriage, who doesn't want to admit defeat. You know what I mean?
I guess that is
That's
the
typical
rom-com thing.
That's
to
the
do.
trope, is that the guy doesn't want to, is like dragging his feet on. The woman moves on a lot easier, more often than not.
That's not true, but
No, well, in fiction.
yes, in fiction.
Yeah,
in
you know. It's a Hallmark. Remember in a fucking Hallmark movie, she's always going back to the guy she left. She's the one that left, and that he's the one that's still holding on.
Or Sweet Home Alabama.
Yeah, whatever.
Comes to mind.
Yeah.
Golly.
That's not a Hallmark movie, but it feels like one.
I mean, it was.
Might as well be. Yeah.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yes, they're perfect. Which, put a pin in Mrs. Doubtfire, because we'll be revisiting a certain
How many things are we gonna visit?
actor from Mrs. Doubtfire, maybe in our next episode.
Oh shit.
A little foreshadowing for the audience. But so I like that. I think it characterizes Joe as an interesting. That alone characterizes her as being obsessive, as we find out, is that she has an inherent inability to let go, whether it is her marriage, whether it is her work, whether it is her past, as we'll find out.
That's an interesting take. Mm-hmm. That is true, though. It does. Yeah, I see what you mean. Mm-hmm. So
we're introduced to her now as an adult.
she has no idea that Melissa's over there, by the way. He starts talking to her. Well, we are first introduced to her. She's securing the rig.
Yeah. So she's a handy, competent meteorologist, storm chaser.
Yeah, and she very quickly, you see, I think she doesn't even have sleeves in this one. I think it's wrapped around her waist. Very quick to roll up her sleeves and get down and dirty with the guys. Mm-hmm. There's another...
And it's also, like you said, communicated that Bill is similar. Later we see him in action, but even in this, like the crew being so familiar with him and
There's only one other woman with them, but like in their crew.
yeah.
But she is the most. Like, she is the lead of this crew, but she's also not afraid to like lead by example or lead by doing.
Yeah.
She's not the kind of person who's like, go do this or, whatever.
Yeah.
More than likely, you got to stop her from doing it because she's going to put herself in harm's way. Yeah, because she is obsessive.
Happens quite a bit.
Yeah. Okay. I'm here.
Yeah.
Here. I can. You convinced me.
So she's snarking at him, basically being like, "Oh yeah, I got the papers. She's not really listening to him and just kind of dragging him through the camp as he's like, "I just need you to sign these." I'd be like, she's here. She's like, "What, are you getting married?" He's like, "Yeah, I am."
Yeah. Yeah. And so she stops and she goes, so this is what I have written down. So Bill comes back, parentheses, he's not back, for divorce papers so he can marry Melissa. And then she just turns and kind of looks at him and just kind of unloads. And she's like, so new job, new truck, new wife.
It's a whole new you.
Whole new you. Oh, because he's also now, instead of a storm chaser like they have been.
He's just a weatherman.
He's just a weatherman. And they are ragging the shit out of him for it.
Yeah. And he's trying to be defensive. He's like, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being a weatherman.
Right.
Nothing, And well, I did want to mention too, I have written down that he does kind of like send Melissa off to hang out with Dusty,
Yeah.
who talks to her about the suck zone.
That had me rolling, because it keeps coming up.
Yeah.
It keeps
Well,
coming
that's
up.
where we're trying to get the whole movie is to the suck
The
zone.
suck zone. So that, and this is where we show it, because she says, well, Dorothy is here. And we think Dorothy is a person at first because we don't see anything.
He's like, she's here?
She's here.
You got her?
And Joe goes, she's here.
Mm-hmm.
And we unveil this metal contraption with a Dorothy from
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard, thank you.
Kind of like sticker put on it.
Sticker on it.
Yeah.
And it's just Dorothy in these big block letters, spray painted on the side. Dorothy 1.
Yeah.
She's like, there's 4 of them.
Right. We find out that these are like
It's
basically
an instrument pack for studying tornadoes. It's the first in its history to be made, and it's got these gumball machine sensors in it that are supposed to fly out
fly up.
into fly up into the twister or the tornado.
Yeah.
To be able to
Get all these
show the
readings.
patterns of tornadoes, because even in today's day and age, tornadoes are horrifically
Unpredictable. Yeah.
We don't know when they're going to hit. It's not like with a hurricane, to liken it to our Floridianness.
Sure.
We have weeks where we know something's coming.
We can follow the path of
We
it.
follow
yeah.
the path. You see the whole system.
Tornado,
sort of just like,
yeah.
you see this. We start hearing about the systems brewing over the Cape Verde Islands from the get.
Mm-hmm.
And then as it travels across the Atlantic, as it gets into the Gulf, you see it come through. You've got a whole mapped out thing of the...
You got time to plan your party.
Yes. Yes. And we stock up on alcohol and we just hang out.
Yep.
And that is not the case with tornadoes.
Yeah, these change paths within hours, minutes, and then stuff.
And I think for us, tornadoes aren't quite as problematic because we have such bigger things with the hurricanes.
Yeah, whenever we've gotten...
I think because we also know that the tornadoes come with the hurricanes for us.
Yeah, they're secondary to like the whole thing.
Right. There's
Yeah.
a bigger production.
They're not the main event. Yeah.
Yeah. There's you got flash flooding to worry about. You got the tornadoes, and you've got the eye to worry about where that's going.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, these are not quite as huge. But I also don't think that we have the big scale tornadoes that they talk about.
No. Yeah, these are very different. No,
We have little twister.
we get more water
tubes.
damage probably out of ours because theirs are mostly passing over just land.
Yeah.
There's more landmass type stuff, but we do see some water damage happen here.
We have so much water damage.
But we get the kind of core motivation here is that they're wanting to basically release these sensors and get all this weather data so that they can have more predictability and like preventative measures put in place eventually.
and to be able to study them better, because at this point, the other thing about the extreme is that he reads storms and he knows how they think, which was crazy. He reads dirt and he knows how a storm thinks.
Yeah.
Or a twister thinks. Insane, by the way.
Right.
This man's a freak of nature.
Well, and we see, and I like this scene because like he is like immediately, because I guess he designed Dorothy, but he never
He helped
actually got
design
around
it.
to build it. So
Yes.
she's in the meantime, and they're in the interim between their divorce and professional separation, she's managed to actually build it and get it up and running basically. And so he's super hyped to see it,
Right.
in the flesh basically.
yeah, very excited.
And he starts. This is one of the first moments in many of the movies where like the movie does kind of become like a Bill Nye episode.
I almost did a spit take.
Yeah. Where she and he start explaining like how a tornado works and like, so this is what these devices are going to do. They're going to go up and absorb the data, whatever.
And mind you, these devices look like they come out of a gumball machine.
They're little, it's a little sci-fi, but it feels relatively realistic. I'm sure these things actually, I don't know, tornado scientists write in, let us know.
Please
But
let us know.
yeah. But this is the first time we really see them bouncing off each other and just immediately see the chemistry.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's two people who are into the same thing, who have the same special interest.
Yes.
And just they're ranting
They have
about
the
it.
same obsession.
And you see the crew as well are like, hell yeah, Bill's talking about
They're like,
fucking
Bill's
tornadoes
Bill's
again.
back.
Hell yeah.
He's not back. I'm not back.
And then, and this also makes Melissa, who like, this is all over her head. This whole world is foreign to her. So she kind of serves as our audience surrogate for a lot of the movie, where she's the one who kind of like, if you don't know anything, she gets explained to it.
She does she does a lot of the expository work just by being present.
Well, and it feels very natural too. It's like, okay, like we need a character here who doesn't know anything, so that when we throw the sciencey stuff at the wall, there's someone there to absorb it for you.
Yeah.
And she doesn't feel. It's not like there's a rookie scientist there or something like that.
No,
that she feels like a much more natural character.
She is. Yes. She is a much more natural.
Because it
character
also
choice.
contributes to the character drama between Bill and Joe and their divorce and reconciliation and stuff as well.
Yeah, and there's crazy tension. So while they're sitting there talking about Dorothy,
and she can tell is the thing. It's like she's looking at them like vibe off each other, and she's like, oh
yeah, because it's palpable.
yeah.
Not only is the crew getting hyped, but like you see them getting hyped together.
You see,
and
like,
they start
yeah.
feeding off of each other for
She's
it.
seeing a glint in Bill's eye that she
It has not seen before.
never with her.
Right.
Certainly, and it only gets worse.
Worse.
for her.
Like you start feeling bad for her from the get, honestly.
Yeah.
So then, as they're standing there talking about it, the call comes in, or the radio comes in, that there's a twister that just touched down.
We got a touchdown.
Yeah, and so we
Let's go!
Yeah, so we all just jump on the rigs and start going.
It's hype as hell.
It's
Western
hype
music
as
picks
hell.
back up. We're
Oh,
like,
yeah, there it goes.
and we're just down the road.
We're going.
Bill's is initially like, they got this, it's fine. And then she's like, well, did you get her to sign the papers? And he's like, oh, damn it, no.
Yeah, because he also is like, oh no, they got it, they gotta go, whatever. And she's like, but you want to go, don't you? And he's like, no, it's fine, they got it.
Yeah.
And then she's like, well, did you get the papers back at least? And he's like, oh shit. And then they have to like jump in his brand new truck.
Yeah.
And start, which he conveniently has a radio in there, which I don't know if that.
They all have
like,
some kind of CB system, is what it feels like.
Is that just something that comes standard, or is that just something that the movie magic?
Maybe as a meteorologist, so that he can like report, and
probably
maybe
yeah.
that's kind of what
You
it
know
is.
You're right. That's probably what it was.
They definitely need it for their job, but yeah, maybe that's why he has it for his.
Yeah. So he
So he joins the chase.
Yeah, and you just see them. You do see him click into the channel and start talking to
Mm-hmm.
him. But Joe is leading the pack in her yellow Jeep truck. Crazy driving here.
Right. Well, and then we encounter our main villain finally, Jonas Miller, played by Carrie Elwes.
Rival storm chaser, former colleague, sellout, and we get this when Bill is explaining this to Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
So again, expository
It's like, who's that? Yeah.
device.
Well, and Jonas almost runs him off the road, basically. And it's
They
kind
call
of,
him a night crawler who's a corporate sellout.
Yeah.
And the only thing about him is that he has no instincts.
Right. He's in it for the money, not the science, is what he says.
Yeah.
Which this is like also like classic 90s corporate villain,
Oh, yeah.
where he's just like, I want to destroy the community pool and build a condo or what, it's that type of
very much so.
characterization. So, but it works.
They've got Jonas hot on their tail, kind of semi hold like on the same road with them, like as far as like neck and neck.
Yeah. They end up stopping at this diner. Jonas unveils that he has a ripoff of Dorothy called Dot 3.
Oh, that's right. And this is where Joe gets to bond with Melissa.
Yeah, Joe and Melissa hang out in the diner. Or
Inside the diner.
Inside the
and
diner.
outside the diner, you see Jonas doing a TV interview.
Demonstration of it. Or he's just like, I'm going to... Well, and I like this, too, because Carrie Elwes in Saul does not have the best American accent. Because in those movies, he's doing, like, your typical, like, Benedict Cumberbatch, Doctor Strange, where he's just like, I'm talking very deliberately and very crisp because I'm actually British. But in order to sound like a real American, they're doing that, So he kind of sounds like that in Saw a little bit. So he's a little shaky in Saw. In this, he's doing a Southern accent. He's like,
well, because that's easier.
We're going to send these. Right. That's what I was going to say. Brits actually, like, Southern accent is not as huge a leap for a Brit as you'd imagine. And so he's actually doing a very good Southern accent in this.
Yes.
It's like, someone get this fool off of me. I'm going to send these things in the air and make a bunch of money. Like, he's got
Get this loser off me.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was. I'm so sorry.
Which I like this too, because like I think it would be easy to make him like a smarmy, like, Bill, of course I'm going to defeat you.
Yeah.
But no, I think it still makes sense for him to be like a down country asshole.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's got the same thing that they do, except his, instead of being spherical gumball machine type things,
They're
his are
cubes.
squares.
Yeah.
Or cubes.
We never see these things in action either. There's no payoff that like, oh, his don't work. You know what I mean? Like normally you'd like the corporate version would like suck or something like
that
that.
would have been nice, but that's not what actually happens.
No,
here.
I don't think we need it, but it is kind of like it just kind of serves to like further characterize him as being an asshole that he
Absolutely.
ripped off their idea.
Absolutely.
That's kind of all it matters. Joe and Melissa are talking in the diner. Melissa immediately clocks that Joe is still in love with
him.
Bill.
And Joe
Calls it out to her face.
And Joe does not respond really. She just kind of walks away. She just pays for Melissa's lemonade and then tells her to use the bathroom here because they're not going to have anywhere
Yeah.
in the road to do so.
Yeah, it's still mission focused right now because she's emotionally unavailable, so she has to focus on her other obsession right now.
Right.
So, and well, there's a good scene in between here too, where Bill is reading the dirt, like
Oh,
he
yeah,
says.
he picks up the
he
dirt.
picks it up and he looks off in the distance.
Because Jonas, this is how we find out that that Bill reads the dirt. Is Jonas says, we don't have to sniff dirt around here no more.
Yeah, which shows the difference in their understanding of because Bill still has like just a natural understanding and inclination towards this stuff, and we see it here. And I like this scene because it breathes. This is the last moment in the movie we get before things really start to go off the rails. And so it's this nice calm before the storm of Bill just like reading the dirt, looking off in the distance, seeing this
And by reading
cloud.
the dirt, we mean he picks it up in his hand and just kind of lets it like fall down
Yeah.
and see where the wind takes it.
But it's a beautiful shot of just the overcast clouds hanging in the sky and just
It's
the
shot from maybe like about his knee level.
It's like the rest of the movie is looming in the distance.
Yeah.
I made that sound deeper than it is, but
It was.
you know, that's what it feels like.
Yes.
So we're off. We're off to so Bill and Joe team up now. They get in Joe's truck together with Dorothy 1.
Yeah, Melissa's driving the red truck.
Yeah. So this is
Bill's brand new truck.
right. So this is our first storm sequence of
And
the movie
she's
of many.
hanging back at the back. And so what we figure out as they go through this sort of sequence is that the first truck is always, or the first car, vehicle, whatever, is always the truck with the Dorothy on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody else is kind of in between. And then right now they've got Melissa in the back, just taking up the rear. And then usually what happens is that just the truck with Dorothy goes towards the storm and gets real close, and everybody else kind of camps out. Rabbit, who is
Kind of our navigator.
Alan Ruck, is our navigator, so we hear his voice most often over the radio. Dusty provides sound support as far as blaring music.
Yeah.
You get this great shot of him really excited and blaring.
Yeah, they have the music fight kind of where like Dusty starts playing like some like prog rock or something, and then like one of the other guys plays like classical.
Yeah.
And then there's also in between here Joe and Bill's little kind of flirty fight scene.
Yeah,
where
but their
they're-
mics are live.
Their mics
so
are
the
live.
whole crew can hear them.
And they're shipping them to hell and back, the whole crew, you know.
absolutely.
But this is a great scene with the two of them where they just Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton have just a great chemistry here. You buy them as exes who still have feelings for each other. She's sniping at him, he's sniping at her, but there's an undercurrent of affection and again just mutual special interest across
Right.
the whole thing. And she's he talks about how she's a therapist.
Oh, Melissa's the therapist.
Melissa's a
Which
therapist.
you get to see. This is great, like comedic relief.
Yeah.
Is as we're like, it's very tense music as we're going, mostly provided by Dusty. And then we've got Joe and Bill up front arguing.
Yeah.
And then in the back, we've got Melissa on her cell phone talking to
One of her clients.
one of her clients, Donald, who believes his wife married him for his penis.
Yeah.
Just that, though.
And she has this a couple times where just like
Donald keeps calling back.
Yeah, it'll cut back to her and she's just having this complete side conversation in the middle of like the most traumatic storm. but Joe, I wrote down here at some point, Bill's like, I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with the decisions I made. I'm happy with Melissa. I know her name. He's like, I know who she. I know, you know. So,
Couldn't think of it at the time, though.
Yeah, no. So
So then she's in the front seat, so she's driving.
it's great
front
rom
seat
com
driving.
energy. It's just again, like I kind of talked about, where like my problem with disaster movies is that it's a man versus nature type thing, and so you need these more human character elements in between all that to keep you invested and interested. And that's what it's really good in this movie.
Well,
is like these characters, just you immediately fall in love with them, and as they're re-falling in love with each other.
Yes, and they're arguing the whole time, the whole movie. So, and that's part of the reason why you fall in love with them.
Yeah, yeah.
And as they're this particular time, they're arguing about going into the field. She's like, "You need to cut through that field. You need to cut through that field." And he's like, "Would you like to drive?" And she's like, "Yes, actually, it's my car." Like, and he eventually cuts through, but he cuts through into a ditch.
Yeah.
Runs down the ditch.
Gets stuck kind of like under a bridge
There's
just as
water
the tornado
in the
is
ditch
coming.
too.
They don't have time to like unhitch the Dorothy device and release the things. So the storm just sweeps up the car.
But
and
this is where you first see how obsessive she is about the storms.
Yeah.
Because
This is crazy.
This was stressful. Because Bill goes to shelter underneath this bridge and like hold on to a post and has her hold on to the post, and she's like, "No, we can do it. We can do it. We can get this one out." And he goes, "No, like we need to stay here." I'm saying this much more calmer than it actually happens.
This is this is our first big tornado scene other than like the opening.
That's true, too.
And it's super intense. It's already, the driving into it is already intense, right?
Yeah.
But then it actually hits, and you just like
And you get the 2 water spouts. Or no, this is
That's
number 2.
later. That's later. That's number 2. We'll get to
the
it.
first one.
We'll get to it. Yeah, first one just drags the car out of the ditch, basically. But Joe is like, "I need to see it. I need to," and she's like crawling towards it.
She's like, "I want to watch it."
And he has to pull her back, but she still like turns around to look at it.
Yeah, and so he like just wraps her between him and the post
Yeah. So and she has
to
this.
trap her from going out there because she would have gone out there.
Yeah, and she does this a couple times, just like a 1,000-yard stare
Yes.
of like hate and interest and just fascination with the tornadoes.
Yeah.
Like, she communicates that so well, but I don't know. Love this scene. And this is just the first one of these we get. And we get like 3 or 4 more of these. And this is where like the formula of the movie starts to kind of happen, where it's like, okay, tornado 1, little breakdown afterwards. Tornado 2. And we do that a couple more times, and you get in the rhythm of that, and it does kind of feel like a roller coaster kind of thing, where it's like, okay, here's a turn, here's a turn, here's a whatever. So really like that. We are hitting kind of our midway point. So do we want to break here after the first tornado and come back and hit the next several?
Yeah, because we're gonna go back to back after the next several. Because once we start with 2, it doesn't really stop.
It doesn't really stop. Yeah, but we will. We'll stop.
We'll be back. And we're back.
Very good. We're back.
We'll do the twist and shout.
Twist and shout. Come on, baby, now.
I forget that if I start a tune that you will finish it.
Twist it up, baby.
Completely my fault.
Yeah. So we are post Twister now.
Yes.
Our first Twister.
Post first one. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So Melissa pulls up, swerves, or the truck falls down in her path.
Out of the
Out of the
Twister.
Twister. And she swerves around it. Dusty thinks this is the most badass thing ever.
Yeah, he thinks she's
he's
cool
like,
as shit, man.
You just missed that truck. Hell yeah. So I'm kind of back to doing my motocross voice.
He did have
With
it a
him,
little
he's
bit.
got
He
a little
did
bit
have
of
it
it.
a little
Yeah,
bit.
he does. And then they rescue the rest of them, or Bill and Joe come out of the wreck and stuff, and they're okay. Unfortunately, all of the Dorothy bots
For the first one.
of the first one, all the sensors are like scattered across the street here. They salvage what they can of them.
But there's very little to salvage.
Yep.
And so for this, so she told us at the beginning when she first unveiled Dorothy to us that there were 4 of them. They have 4 of them. So that's 1 down.
Yeah. So keep that in
Incidentally,
mind.
we only have 4 Twisters to get through, so we're good.
Jill or Miller's what is it? Jason Jonas.
Jonas.
Jesus. Jonas, not Jesus. Jonas.
Jonas drives by.
Jonas Dusty harasses the hell out of him. He's like, "You missed it, losers." So he's great.
He kisses the driver's face.
Yeah, he just jumps
Fucking
in.
funny.
Yeah. So that's great.
And then they continue on.
So they chase after them. They're going after.
So as they're rolling by, it comes in that there's a second one.
An
Or I guess
F3.
like just right before.
Yeah, there's an F3, and Jonas is going to.
No, this is an F2.
Is it an F2?
An
F2 or
intensifying F2.
Okay.
So we're.
I think this is the one where Melissa joins them in the truck. They hijack
So
Bill's truck for the.
They
for this.
hijack Bill's truck. Well, Meg, that's not her name.
Melissa.
No.
Joe.
Joe. Frick.
Meg is her aunt. We're about to meet her aunt.
We're
here
about to
in
meet
a little bit.
Aunt here too. But Joe asks Bill, she's like, "You got full coverage on this thing?" And he goes, "No, it's liability only, but don't you dare." And she's like, "Well." Cut to them in the truck.
They're in a nice
And
hard cut.
Melissa's in the back seat.
Yeah, and now she's taking her therapy calls and everything.
She's taking
while
her
this is
therapy.
happening.
So they are chasing this
And
one.
she has a thing too. She like says to or Bill says to her, it's like she's a reproductive therapist because like that's what she's talking
Because
to.
she starts talking about the penis again.
Yeah, or whatever it is.
And so as they start going down the road, they kind of cut off Jonas a little bit.
Yeah, well, Bill can tell that whatever
gonna
gonna
turn.
shift. Yeah, whatever path Jonas is, they're gonna intercept it. So they do intercept it, which again just kind of demonstrates Bill versus Jonas.
But they intercept it over a bridge near water.
We get sisters,
And then we get it to split into the twin sisters.
which this is obviously
Twisters.
probably CGI or maybe some combination of practical, but this looks
Cool as
beautiful.
shit.
Yeah, like this holds up. This looks like it's really happening so much in this movie. Which we were reading. Part of the trivia thing is that the director DeBont, whatever it is, he really wanted to do this because he kind of saw the future of where CGI was going and was like, eventually that's going to take over. This may be like one of the last really big practical effect movies we're going to be able to make.
Yes.
And he was 100% right. And damn that like all these practical effects that we'll get into more of them as we go on. They really hold up. They really make everything feel like it's real, like it's happening. There's a weight to everything.
Yes.
Even in this kind of areas where like, oh, the twister splits apart. Now we got the sister twisters. This is also where we've got cows.
Yeah, so Joe goes, cow, another cow. Bill goes, actually, I think that was the same one. Meanwhile, Melissa's on the phone with Donald's wife, Julia. And she goes, I got to go, Julia. We got cows.
We got cows.
And you're sitting there and you're like, it's very intense, right? They're very close to these things. Like, and we got cows.
Well, I think that's what I like
You
about
see this
this.
poor cow like going through it, by
Right.
the way.
I think this is what I like about this one when I talk about how I'm not really a big disaster movie person is that like usually the disaster is super intense and you're just stuck in the intensity of it. This one, even though it does get like there is like one or two scenes that are like more played for scares than anything. There's moments like these where like we got cows where the levity of it makes me like tolerate the like, oh, this is crazy, things are happening, and then it's like haha. There's a haha moment in between it that I like. That brings me back to like, oh, it's just a movie. It's a fun. I'm having fun with it instead of just being like, oh, great, scary storm.
Yeah,
Let's get through it.
It does give it a depth that even if you think that, or even if you don't like scary things, which I'm not one of those people.
Sure.
I don't like, or I am one of those people. It is still fun.
Yeah.
And it's still a good movie, and you can enjoy it just as much.
Right, and obviously this is iconic imagery of the cow going through.
Because you've
Whether
got
or
like
not
a
you've seen
Chick-fil-A,
Twister or not, you know the cow from Twister.
the Chick-fil-A looking dairy cow
Yeah.
that is just dying. According to the book on the making of the movie, the CGI cow, so no cows were harmed in the making of this film,
Yeah.
was originally a CGI zebra from Jumanji.
I think maybe they reused like the animation for it or something like that, I guess
Yes.
is what it sounds like. Yeah.
Yes.
Which that's a fun one too. Got to do the original Jumanji
Absolutely.
at some point here.
So, okay, so they get through that.
Well, Melissa has a good line at the end of this run where she's like, she says to Bill, she's like, Bill, when you said you used to chase tornadoes, I really thought that was just a metaphor.
Yeah, she didn't think it was real. She thought it was like making shit up.
The thing is, it is kind of a metaphor. Their little relationship is like chasing a tornado.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
But again, like I said, just great little bits of comedy and it's spliced in between here that are really, really fun. And it makes you like Melissa too, because you're kind of stuck of viewing her as like the third wheel between the real rom-com happening in the middle here.
Well, at first, because she does come in like a very like white like suit.
She's very prissy and out of place.
Yeah.
Immediately.
So
Yeah.
you're like, oh, she's not a real person. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, oh, she's just a rich girl, you know, or something.
Right. But she's not hateable. She's not like the
she's not-
stepmom in
she's
Parent
not a-
Trap.
She's not a rich bitch. She's just a
No.
rich girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because but she is so doe-eyed. I think that's why you're like, oh, she's just a rich girl.
Yeah, but she's also supposed to be you, remember, as the audience. You're supposed to be in the back seat
Wide-eyed.
watching all of this and being like, what the hell is going on? Yeah.
Right. So very good work on her part to make herself relatable and play the part correctly.
Despite being the third wheel and the false love
Yeah,
interest.
there's an alternate reality where she was absolutely the villain.
And super annoying. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah. And that not bold, but like good that they didn't make her that.
Right. After that one, we go and they look at each other actually the crew is like, well, there's one coming to Wakita. Or there's
Yeah.
a storm like forming over Wakita.
We're not far.
We're not far. We can go to Meg's.
Food!
Which clearly, like, these boys have also been there before, and they're like, Meg's.
Meg's.
And Joe's like, we're not going to Meg's. And they're like, but Meg's. And so we go to Meg's.
Hard cut to Meg's. yeah.
Where they get, because they say food.
Mm-hmm.
And they get steak and eggs.
So we meet Aunt Meg, or Joe's Aunt Meg, who's also familiar with Bill. So this is also awkward for Melissa. It's like you're meeting your husband's ex's family.
Yeah,
you know,
ex-in-laws.
It's very like, oh, this guy had a whole other life.
Yeah.
Before me.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's
oh,
that
yeah.
vibe.
And it further solidifies that they've been together forever because he has such a good relationship with her.
Right.
With Aunt Meg specifically.
Well, and even the rest of the crew too.
Because she's so excited to see him.
Yeah, and we also, this is where we get kind of Bill's backstory about why he is the extreme, according to
Yes.
Dusty.
Yes.
Where Dusty explained as his backstory, where like Bill like stumbled out naked in the middle of a storm once, and like Joe and the crew were there, and he like chucks a bottle into it, and it just
He's like,
disappeared.
have a drink.
Yeah, have a drink, Storm. So in Bill, you know, so also from Melissa, it's her finding out that like my boyfriend is just a completely different guy
Yeah.
than who I thought he was, and who, you know, and he clearly still has that part of himself in it.
Right.
You know, but Dusty also has the line here I like, where like Jonas comes on the TV and he's like bullshitting about what he's gonna do, and Dusty's like, he's gonna rue the day, man. There's gonna be imminent ruinage.
Serious imminent ruinage, man.
So Philip Seymour Hoffman is
Sells
just
this movie,
yeah,
man.
so great in this, man. He's awesome.
So then they get their steak and eggs as they're eating. They're not quite done, honestly. But Joe has gone upstairs to shower, so she's not quite with the rest of the crew.
Yeah, she and Meg. Oh, I wanted to talk to
And so she had talked to
Bill.
Aunt Meg.
Bill does have also another Bill Nye the Science Guy sequence in the middle of this where he explains the what is it? The Fukushima, whatever it is, the tornado
The
scale.
Fujita scale.
Of tornado, which
Which
this
is the intensity
yeah.
of them.
So
Which
this is for the
you can
audience.
F1 through 5, basically.
Mm-hmm.
The only person who has seen, of their crew, has seen an F5, which Melissa so aptly asks
Yeah.
for us. Well, she asks, you know, well, what's an F5? What have y'all seen of an F5? And
Yeah.
she's like, and Bill says, well, only one of us has seen an F5.
Yeah. And then it cuts to Joe upstairs talking
Which-
with Meg and stuff. Yeah.
Right, which was when her daddy
Yeah.
was gone.
Mm-hmm.
He quite literally disappeared.
He is swallowed by that F5.
So
Homie got F5'd.
yeah, oof. But so now they're being told over the radio that there's an F3 coming with highly unpredictable movement. So they jump in their vehicles again. Joe says to Meg, "I hate to eat and run." Meg is seen putting together a bag. She's got a paper bag of stuff with like foil wrap stuff in it.
For like everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, she gives it specifically to Dusty.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Dusty, this is for you." He's like, "Thanks, sweetheart," and kisses Aunt Meg.
Yeah.
Melissa is assigned to ride with Dusty. So it is just Joe and Bill.
This is pretty cold
This
to
is
Bill, too.
Freaking nuts, man.
Bill is like, you ride with Dusty, you'll be okay, and just
Well,
leaves
actually,
her.
I think I know why. Because after the Twisted Sisters one,
Twisted Sisters. We're not gonna take it.
After the Twisted Sisters one,
Uh-huh.
she was like, "It's not okay. It's not okay," and she's freaking out
Mm.
after that one. And so I think what it is that he knew that she couldn't handle it, and he knows that obviously he and Joe are gonna obviously deploy
Be
Dorothy,
at the front of the cavalry.
but Dusty is gonna stay behind, and he's one of the video. So that's the most logical person.
Safest place to be.
And that's also
Yeah.
the person who's been trying. To the crew's credit,
They're making her feel as welcome
even-
as they can.
yeah, even though they're rooting for Joe and Bill for sure, and that part is not at all in question.
They're not sabotaging.
They're also not sabotaging Melissa and Bill either. They
Yeah.
really like Melissa. They've accepted her as one of their own from the jump.
Right. Well, they're also a singularly focused bunch of pals.
All they
It's-
care
yeah.
about is the fucking Twisters, man.
Yeah, these dorks, man.
And they're cool. Like it's cool though. Like the way
This
they
makes
do
you
it.
think of like this line of work as being like super badass, which the trailers for the new one do too.
Yes.
You know, so
So as they're going after this, you start to see a little bit more Rabbit with the maps, and this kind of dates it because
oh yeah, just MapQuest.
yeah, because
Probably before that.
You don't have the GPS. It's before that even. You
Mm-hmm.
have atlases that he's pulling up. He's pulling out books
Yeah.
of maps to navigate this thing.
Which this is, we'll talk. Speaking of production, it's like the set dressing of the vans and stuff,
Oh, yeah.
stuff like that, where like the maps are in the background. Like they sell those as being very used, beaten up, you know, like vehicles and stuff.
Oh yes, yeah.
It's like I compared it to Mad Max, just the driving sequences in this, where like they're super just cool, intense driving sequence. You were like Fast and the Furious.
yeah.
So-
This is a very it's very Fast and Furious esque type
Yeah.
driving.
Even with like the radios, like they all have got their different, like Dusty's got like his TV that's constantly playing like MTV or whatever it is, like in the background, little things like that.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of trivia note somewhere that, like, because there is a few Fast and Furious movies where they use radios, and so I wouldn't be surprised if that sort of kind of vibe was taken from
Yeah.
subliminally, or maybe even
Sure.
exactly from Twister.
Well, you get the sense that like each the vehicles kind of have a character to them.
Yes.
As just that is in line with whatever the little side character is driving them and stuff like that, which is always nice.
Right. So as they go, they're chasing this F3. They go to
Well, this
deploy
one's-
Dorothy 2.
Yeah, this one's good because we can't see it yet. Is the thing is like
This one.
first of all,
This one's just swirling up in the sky.
well, first of all, Rabbit guides them to like go straight through a cornfield, which is great.
Oh yeah, and you have to trust Rabbit because
Yeah.
they're like, "Where are we going, Rabbit?
like,
Where's,
where's
the
the
road,
road?"
Rabbit?"
They almost pull out. Where's the road, Rabbit? But they pull out into almost T-bone Jonas's squad.
Yes.
Who is also out here. Managed to like beat him and kind of cut him off, I guess.
Well, no. So they start going side by side, and then they divert when Bill starts to see that the storm is going to shift, and he starts. He's like, "Look at the clouds," and he
Yeah.
does it. He does his little Bill Nye the thing, where he goes, "Look at the clouds."
Yeah.
look-
Some sciencey explanation for it.
Yeah, look at the little look at the little bumps with they're gonna
on
it's
the
gonna,
rain and on the window and stuff like
and
that.
it's gonna
yeah.
turn this way. You gotta
Yeah.
go. We gotta turn. And so no blinkers. We just turn.
It's almost like they're Floridians.
Oh Lord, they absolutely. And he hard writes it, man. Like it's like a. That's what I mean by no blinkers too. Is that it's just a hard, quick turn
Right.
that you start to see them kind of fishtail on a little bit.
Yeah. They get pretty close, like bumper to bumper to each other almost. Here.
Oh yeah, and you wonder specifically in several scenes of these driving sequences, which is also why it feels a little Fast and Furious, is that you wonder if they're going to crash.
Yeah.
If that's going to be a factor here.
Well, that's the thing is it's almost a car movie.
Oh,
it
yeah.
really is like a chase car movie, which
Yes.
I kind of wasn't expecting. Like I don't know what else I would have thought it would have been, but like that was fun. That it was like, oh, this is just a big chase sequence the whole time, basically.
right.
Very cool.
So they try to deploy Dorothy.
So they
2.
can't see this one though. So there's this great.
They don't see this one till it's on top of them.
Yeah, which
and
I
then-
like. I like the build up here. This one, the last two, we've kind of like turned a corner and they're there. This one is like, when's it coming? When's it coming? When's it coming? And then it comes.
Power lines come down, crushes Dorothy.
This is where we get hail.
We start
Hail
getting
comes in,
hail.
and this is painful. This one like hurt to watch. It was like because he starts getting in the back to like get it to release basically. Because this one, I think they're just trying to release him while still driving.
Yes.
So and he's in the back trying to like get it to go.
She's driving, and it's rough. They're not able to do so. It knocks over Dorothy too. It crushes Dorothy too as well.
Yeah.
And then we get the truck exploding.
Yeah, well, it disappears for a second, and then it does what they call back building, where it comes back again. It comes back around,
And
even
she
more
wants
intense.
to keep going.
Yeah, and then it gets swept up, and Bill has to like hold her back from it, from like going to like reset it up and whatever.
And this is where we get a great fight for them while it's back building, where they start talking. He says, Joe, things go wrong. You can't explain it. You can't predict it. Killing yourself won't bring your dad back. I'm sorry that he died, but that was a long time ago. You got to move on. Stop living in the past and look what you got right in front of you. And she says,
It's like, what do you mean?
what are you saying?
Yeah, me, Joe.
You have me.
Yeah.
Whole time,
Oh right, yeah.
Melissa can hear on the radio.
Yeah, and this is kind of like we always
Got it.
There's always a scene in all these movies. I think it's just the storytelling nature of things where it's like the scene, and this is kind of the scene for me in a lot of ways, at least performance wise, where it's the two of them and like they have their real, this is his big like saying I love you without saying I love you and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's her.
But those are great moments, always.
It's her obsession breaking through and her kind of realizing the hurt that it's caused. It's probably her realizing why he left to begin with.
Yes.
Too, you know what I mean? It's like she's like, damn, like I really have kind of forsaken my relationship with this guy for this obsession of mine.
Well, she's in it, and she's clearly absolutely forgotten that he's there with her.
Yeah, that he's been seeing this whole mission through the whole time with her. Yeah, and also Melissa's performance here, her actress.
And he cares about it, too. It's not just her that cares about it.
Yeah, no, he's just as much of a dork about this shit as she is. And Melissa was really great. She does this thing where she's kind of trying to smile through it.
Yeah.
And, but you see her processing.
You cut to Dusty holding an umbrella for her, useless umbrella, by the way, because it's raining sideways.
Yeah.
But whew, the hit came out. My bad.
Yeah.
But
This is the movie for it.
But you see that she's got, just a drenched face, and that's hiding her tears a little bit, and she's trying to grimace her way through that.
Yeah.
But obviously they're also all hearing this and feeling for her as well.
Yeah. Beautiful scene, beautiful performance here. So just want to highlight that. We get to the drive-in, so we have another little, again, going back to the formula of this movie where it's like, okay, tornado, little post-tornado scene, kind of cool-down scene. So we get another cool-down scene here where they're all
they go over
camped
to
out
Fairview
at a drive-in. Yeah.
At a drive-in movie.
And what is playing?
The Shining.
The Shining, which, for the audience, my favorite movie ever
You were the reason that I watched that movie.
is The Shining. I made everybody watch it, and everybody looked at me like, Garrett, what the fuck is this?
You made us watch it on Halloween. It was a big thing. It was
Yeah.
it was so slow until it wasn't.
Right, yeah. I love it. So I like that it gets a shout out in this. I think it really, and it also, they use it very effectively here, as we'll talk about.
Yeah.
So I desperately want to do The Shining at some point.
So go ahead.
Fantastic movie. Again, this is a nice little cool down scene where they're just hanging out at the thing. They have Bill and Joe have a conversation. First, Joe
goes to get
Yeah.
coffees for everybody.
and she begrudgingly,
She grabs the pen from the waitress
yeah.
from behind the window.
Uh-huh.
They have just like a concession stand, and I shouldn't call her a waitress.
She's a
She's
drive-in. Yeah.
concession
Yeah.
stand waitress, whatever. She grabs her pen from behind the counter and signs the divorce papers, the final page that she had not signed yet. And that, to me, was on brand. But for you, did that feel on brand?
Yeah. What do you mean?
Well, so it was like he just confessed his love for her,
Basically.
basically, as much as he could without saying, I love you, I'm still in
Yeah.
love with you.
Yeah.
And she, instead of taking that as encouragement as you think she would have,
She takes it as defeat.
she takes it as, okay, this is just what it is now, and signs it off. And to me, I feel like that's more of an emotionally avoidant or, emotionally unavailable person is that as soon as you start loving me back, well, fuck it, bye.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it's in character for her. I think it tracks as an in-character move that she's still not.
So you were just yelling at her, oh, no, don't do it when you were yelling.
I was just sad.
Because you were yelling.
I was sad for her. Yeah, no, I mean, again, their chemistry is just so good and you want them to end up together. And so it's just a bummer that like, oh, she can't, they're going to end up together in the end anyway. It's that kind of movie.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, there's no surprise to it or anything. But it's just sad. I think Helen Hunt is a great actress where she just has this sadness to her that is so palpable. I think she has this across a lot of roles, like definitely in as good as it gets, where she's just, it's so believable.
Tortured?
Yeah, just has this torture to it's subtle, but it's there, and you can get the sense that she's like, this guy doesn't, or I don't deserve this guy, is kind of the vibe I get, where it's just like, he really did go through hell for me today. Yeah. And I have nothing to show for it. And, and he's clearly moved on to this other girl who was willing to give him the attention that I wasn't and stuff, which again, I think that's really interesting that's the woman's arc in this. Cause I think it's usually in media, the man's job to kind of figure out what did I do wrong and to make good on it. And then the fact that it's kind of more her journey to go through is interesting. And this is a good little calm before the storm in a very literal sense.
And meanwhile, there's an F4 storm building right where they are.
Yeah, and they have a talk here, she and Bill, where they talk about the sensors, about the Dorothy sensors, and how they're too light, is how even if the whole mechanism is not getting picked up by the storm enough, is that it's too light, it just gets knocked over and they spill out all the time.
Yeah, so he's like, well, how do you propose we weigh it down? And she goes, I don't know.
Yeah.
And she's just saying, she's just spitballing with a colleague at that point.
Right. But you still see the defeat in her here where she's like, she really doesn't have the solution for it. She's just not in the headspace.
Right. So then the F4 starts to come through. So everybody from the drive-in has to run into this very
great scene.
Very conveniently placed barn.
Dusty's like runs up and he's like, it's coming for us, coming straight for us. And Bill Paxton is like, it's already here.
Oh yeah.
And this is which is so I love the deliveries on this. It's the scene, the storm. This is the scariest it gets. Like even the last storm doesn't really as scary. This is what the ride in Universal is based on too. Is the drive-in.
This is very near and dear to your heart.
Right. Well, you'll have a good drive-in
for multiple reasons.
Right, because we see the storm
as the storm is coming through. The Shining is going through.
It's still playing.
Right at the point where
Jack is hammering into the wall,
axing into the wall to. With the iconic poke his face through.
Yeah.
Here's
so
Johnny.
as soon as the storm hits the screen, the axe enters the door, and so it's a hit. It's a literal hit of the storm and of the axe. And then when the screen is completely evaporated by the ripped apart by the storm,
his face is
there, and so it's like here's
through.
The storm.
Yeah.
It's so literal and so visually
very well done.
Yeah, well, it's
such a point to production.
I don't know who came up with this, but it hits especially if you know The Shining, but even if you don't, it's just
because I think everybody knows the
at the very least the here's
Nicholson,
Johnny thing.
Here's Johnny, crazed look in his eyes, deranged face.
Yeah. So this is super effective. And again, just visually, the effects here, the lightning flashing across everybody's face, the fact that you can't see this thing, even the storm is just black, and then lightning hits, and then you can see it, and then it's gone again. So it's so uneasy.
Yeah, and it's a very tense couple minutes that you're sitting in that barn waiting for the storm to pass over. The one of the guys gets injured with a flying saucer type wheel that knocks him that just gashes
like a trash can lid or something like that.
It knocks him in the forehead and slices it too.
Mm-hmm.
And then
some of the cars are crashing through.
Some of the cars have crashed through, and you really think to yourself, "Oh my God, these cars are going to crush all these people."
There's nothing they can do. This is where the man versus nature, like you're saying, where it can happen to anybody. It does not discriminate.
Yeah.
It's they're just stuck.
Yes.
They just got to wait for it to die, basically.
And they just wait for it to go out. And then as they come out and they start to listen to the radio to figure out where the next one is and, sort of, what's going on and trying to figure out, if anybody's safe or anything, it says that it's headed right towards Wakita,
Yeah.
which is where Aunt Meg is.
Right.
And we cut to Aunt Meg sitting in our house.
Well, I just want to talk before we move on to Aunt Meg. I
Okay.
want to talk about the drive-in sequence and about all the shit falling on him and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're talking about like pre-CGI and everything, all of that feels real.
Oh yeah,
That's like real
no.
glass
That's what I meant by tense. Like it, like
Yeah.
you see the glass break and you watch the glass fall.
on a production level. It's just
You watch
I'm
the
curious
cars
to
stack
see,
on top of each other.
I want to see the new one after this and see how well they're able to replicate, if they do or not, the realness of it. Because
Well,
it's
Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton both were, or well, Helen Hunt specifically was injured
yeah.
with several of these scenes.
Sure.
Bill Paxton was also injured. The lights from the production of these burned their retinas,
Damn.
so they couldn't fucking see for several production days.
Jesus.
They had to have special drops and sunglasses and stuff. That's one of the trivia points in
Wow.
the IMDb.
Wow.
So that's like this is, and they spared no expense for real. And I fully believe for sure, because we know that they used a Boeing 707 engine for the wind scenes.
Oh, jeez.
Like these folks that are like, even the extras are going through it. Because, this was a scene where you had a lot of extras,
Yeah.
where they're all like crammed into, and then you see them, they're like 3 or 4 deep
Right.
per like row, and they're just huddled as close as they can. And that's terrifying.
You feel it.
And
as
we
the
wonder
audience.
now, how much of this is the new folks going to feel
Right.
in this
it
2024
Yeah. Are they just going to have a
sequel?
big fan and not a Boeing engine? You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't know.
It's like, are the cars going to be CGI and not like very heavy duty models or whatever they use?
Because back then all the cars were metal too. There wasn't really plastic cars. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll
the
have to
the
see.
bumpers were fucking metal.
The trailers for it looked good, but I'm curious to see how it holds up compared to this and just how real this all feels.
Oh yeah,
So
for
anyway.
sure. So anyways, they go through that. It cuts. We hear about Wakita. We cut to Aunt Meg sitting in her house with a book, just chilling.
And the wind picks up again.
She's got a dog. Mose is his name. We did
Yeah.
meet him.
Right.
So-
Effective tool from the writers, we'll say, is like if you
The
ever want things to
dog is
feel tense,
important.
throw in a dog. That'll make the audience give a whole lot
And
of shit.
everybody gives a shit. I don't. You know what I mean? Like I was cool with Dad dying. I was not cool with Toby dying.
Very worried at the start. Yeah.
From the jump, I was like, man, Toby better make it.
There's a website called like doesthedogdie.com.
Oh my god.
Like
There is?
You plug a movie in, it's like, does it die? No, thank God. Or we'll watch it. And probably it's more so for parents, so they can
No,
check.
it's honestly so scarring.
Very useful.
Oh, and
But
it's
it is.
worse when like it's fine. Like it's not fine,
Mm-hmm.
but like Old Yeller, Marley and
I Am
Me.
Legend. Haunted by I Am Legend. Fuck I Am
Fuck,
Legend.
I Am Legend.
Yeah.
See, like, so for Old Yeller, you had to put him down, but he was sick, right? So
Right.
like he just wasn't going to be. He was going to die anyways from the
Yeah.
sickness. Marley and Me, he was old.
Yeah.
I Am Legend,
A tragedy. It's a
Fuck.
tragedy.
tragic.
Yeah. Ugh.
Anyways, so
Well, and it's the reveal when he's like, no, this is an I Am Legend episode now.
oh god,
Where he's like, he calls her Samantha up until that time. It's called him Sam, and he says her full name. Fucking hell, man. I genuinely hate that movie because it makes me feel my own feelings. It's one of those.
as we know, you don't like those.
No, like, yeah, anyway.
Moving back to Mose.
Yeah.
Mose and Meg are chilling in the house. She's reading a book. Mose is just kind of laying there. Mose is a golden retriever, so he's larger. Aunt Meg has also seemingly become just as obsessed with storms, which I presume because Oklahoma is the kind of state where they are known for their tornadoes that I
Sure.
assume that everybody has these kinds of things.
Yeah.
But she has an excessive amount. Like some people have gardens or gnomes in their yard. Aunt Meg has fucking wind chimes.
Cool
and
ass wind chimes,
it's
too.
cool ass wind chimes you don't ever see, and windmills and things like that to sort of show you the direction of the wind. So she has a multitude of those outside, and you have a cut of those and of her watching those, seeing that they suddenly started to pick up, and then you get the warning coming through on the television.
Yeah, it's a great dread. It's a good build up. It's like, oh no,
It's-
we're not done.
It's very
Yeah.
quiet of like because it's just, you start to see it slowly move, and then the chimes start to slowly pick up.
It's like a horror movie.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We cut back to Joe trying to call. She's like, Meg, we have to call Meg. And Bill says, no, phone lines are down. We've already tried. And so now they're hightailing to.
But before they leave, Melissa gives us the last little stab through the heart here, where she breaks up with Bill, and it's like, she needs you. She's like, I won't be here when you get back. Like, it's like, I'm not what you need.
Yeah, you clearly need each other. She says you need each other. She needs you, and you need her.
It's a very mature response, because she's a therapist.
Because she's a therapist.
And she's therapized herself through it. But again, like, this makes her also really likable. Like, you know what I mean? You feel bad for her. She's even though she's third wheeling, she's one of the most likable third wheels I think I've seen in a movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
For a minute, So, and Bill gets it. He also takes this, obviously because he knows what he wants.
Yes.
But so they take off. They do take off at this point too. This last we see of Melissa.
Yes.
So she rides off to the sunset.
So her last thing is, oh, don't worry about me. I know my way home. Mm-hmm. And she just kind of smiles.
Yeah. We cut to Wakita. We're at Wakita. We're driving through it. Great spooky scene here.
There's everything is just demolished, and then we see these folks just standing outside, just trying to get their bearings, trying to find each other, crying. Lots of screaming.
We see the ghosts kind of. Joe kind of seems to see like the ghosts of
herself with her family, and her dad is there as well.
Yeah.
So her mom is holding her, and her dad's standing next to them, and that's really shocking, really jarring to see.
It's a weird little almost. It's obviously, who knows if it's ghosts or whatever. It's her just psychologically processing it. But I think it's a good visual.
Yes.
To communicate just how obsessed and how haunted by this she really is. And they do that a lot with Joe, where like she does not, because she is so non-confrontational about her own issues, is that it's all expressed through her actions.
Yes.
Same kind of thing, where like she never says any of this kind of stuff out loud herself. It's all expressed visually just through movie language, which is really effective.
Right.
They do rescue Meg, so they get to Meg's house.
So they get to Meg's house. It's on two legs. There's only two left.
Yeah.
And it's creaking. It's creaking like it's gonna fall apart. So they climb through the second story window. Long story short, get her unpinned from whatever bookcase.
This is very horror movie because it's lit really dark and stuff. And
you're only seeing things as the lightning comes through.
It's very claustrophobic.
Yes.
Too,
Yes.
They hear the dog, and so the dog kind of leads them to where Meg is, and Meg is kind of she's like halfway out of it, but also like in character enough to where it's like maybe this is just how she is. Because she's like, I'm fine. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And so she's like, I'm great. So they get her out. They get Mose out. Well, Mose kind of follows behind. She's like, you gotta get Mose. I think he's a little scared. And you see Bill holding a very like stiff, terrified Mose.
Giant golden retriever. Yeah.
he's just there. And it's kind of funny. And then as she's in the ambulance, we have a really sweet scene here where they're talking about how the storms. So you go back, you in between here somewhere, not for sure where. You cut back to the National Severe Storm Laboratory with all their screens and stuff.
Yeah.
And they're looking at a radar essentially, and they're saying, if these two things converge, that'll turn into a storm we've never seen before.
F5.
An F5. And they're like, well, pray to God that doesn't happen or whatever. And then as we're pulling Meg into the ambulance, you hear, oh, nope, here it comes.
Yeah.
And so Aunt Meg looks, and mind you, Joe is having a crisis of faith in herself.
Yeah.
Basically. We're pulling
She said, well, she's lost all of the, almost
she's
all of the Dorothys.
She's never been able to successfully even get close to successfully deploy a Dorothy. She knows it's not going to pick up because of the weight issue, yada, yada. And so Aunt Meg says, you have to go. You go stop it. And Joe goes, I don't know how. And Aunt Meg says, oh, I think you do. And that's it. That's all she says. Yeah. And then she's loaded into the back of the ambulance that she, mind you, the other thing about her, she wanted to drive. to the hospital. She's like, I'm fine. I'll drive to the hospital. And Rabbit's like, I don't think you can. Your car's wrapped around the tree.
Yeah. Well, I like this because what they're talking about with Joe and Meg is she's like, like we need a better warning system. And that's kind of like goes back to like the main practical application of Joe's trauma.
She's like, there's other people that are going to be hit by this. This is always going to affect us if somebody doesn't figure out how to stop it.
Yeah. And Joe has this brain blast moment where she's like staring at the broken wind chimes.
The very cool wind chimes that Aunt Meg has.
Which you realize, I think, for the first time as she's staring at them too, that like they're in the shape of a twister.
Yes.
Is that they're in the shape of a tornado, and she's realizing like, oh, she gets the idea that she passes on to Bill and the squad.
So what it is that it's basically like a pinwheel type situation where usually you see a pinwheel standing straight up and it spins around clockwise or counterclockwise, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's spinning like it's facing you. This one that Aunt Meg has, there's 3 of them and they're facing the sky.
They're like horizontal. Yeah.
Yes. And they're spinning like they're going to fly. Like a flywheel even of a car.
There you go, yeah.
And so that's where she gets the idea. She tells them, she's like, get as much aluminum as you can and put basically these flywheels on all the sensors. And so you see as they're driving. So the fun thing about this is very convenient. They lost 2 vehicles at the drive-in. The team did.
Yes.
And so they're consolidated down to like, I think there's a car caravan of like 5 or 6 and they're now down to like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And so you've got a lot of extra hands that don't have to drive in the car, and they're able to put together these pinwheels on both Dorothy 3 and Dorothy 4.
Yeah, all the little sensors that go into it. Yeah.
All the sensors that go into it. And so they're doing that as they're driving towards the F5. Aluminum wings. And this was a shout out to Pepsi because they were all made out of
I guess
Pepsi.
it is a bit of a Pepsi sponsorship here.
And I don't recall, but this might be part of the lore that Dusty just drinks exclusively Pepsi. That seems like something that would be.
Sure.
Or like the team
They'd have a
exclusively drinks
preference.
Pepsi.
Yeah, they're Pepsi people, not
like,
Coke people.
They're like, for us, it would be Dr. Pepper cans.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Both of us consume Dr. Pepper like it's water. We probably should drink more water, but we're not going to.
Yep.
We ain't starting today. I'll tell you that. We start chasing after the F5. And of course, now that we have started chasing it, they attempt to place Dorothy 3.
Yeah, so they do place Dorothy 3 down in the middle of a street. Basically, they leave it there. They back up for a second, and
as they back up,
it's still too light.
Trees start to come. No, it's not even that. It is still too light. But additionally, trees start to come out. Tree branches and things. Huge debris starts coming out.
Whole ass trunk.
And a whole ass trunk of a tree comes at them.
Just bonks it.
Bonks underneath them. Bonks it.
Bonks the Dorothy. Knocks it
over.
Spills all the sensors out. Yeah.
And then goes underneath their car.
So they're lodged.
They're lodged
onto
where
this
they're
tree.
at.
Yeah.
And what's scary about this is that they are lodged underneath this tree, and as they see something huge inside the tornado.
And they're like, "What is that?" It's a fucking semi-truck.
Not only is it a semi-truck,
gasoline.
It's a gasoline or petroleum, whatever.
Yeah.
Semi-truck.
It's so crazy because
which we know from Final Destination, from all the other things, all the other thriller movies, those are flammable.
It's gonna blow up. Yeah, but every storm is like escalated from the last one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like, how much bigger can it get? And like, sure, and then here comes a semi truck. So I love it. It's just the pacing and the payoff of like, you thought that was bad, just wait.
And
love
so
it.
to speak to the non-CGI-ness of this movie, the explosion of the oil tanker was real.
Okay.
And we know this because the explosion of the oil tanker was originally mistimed and was not caught on film.
Wow.
DeBont decided not to tell the studio immediately, and the stunt was reset and filmed again, costing a rumored $500,000.
Damn. Shout out to him, dude, for the commitment of like, we're just going to do it again.
He's like, don't tell anybody, we're just going to fucking do it.
Wow.
So
worth it.
So that's a real explosion.
Yeah.
That's fucking nuts. You're playing around with pyrotechnics, not just pyrotechnics, explosives.
Yeah. The commitment of this movie to make shit feel and look real, because it is just off the charts.
Oh, yeah.
So cool. So the thing blows up. And then Dusty Raiders, did you guys see that explosion? It's like, we saw it.
They were inside of it,
We were
mind
in
you.
it, dude.
They were literally inside of it. The front of the semi, or
Yeah.
the front of the oil tanker pushes them off of the tree to be able to get away.
Yeah. So they continue to chase
And
it.
they have to drive through the explosion.
Yeah.
They were inside an explosion when it went off.
It's so good. Somehow.
What the fuck? Anyways, continue.
So at this point they do catch up to Jonas. Jonas re-enters the story, which we were reading on the trivia that it's a lot of his stuff kind of
Was cut out in
was
editing.
lost in the edit. Which
He had more stuff.
yeah, it kind of feels
Because he's a great actor. Like he's,
yeah, and he only gets like 3 or 4 scenes here, so
Yeah, so that it feels
is-
rough.
Yeah, and it's fine. Like you can see why because he's not super necessary. And like I was saying, where it's like, well, we need a human villain. The tornado isn't good enough to carry the villain role in a disaster movie. We need a human villain. He's in there just enough to be fine.
So now he's chasing the same storm. So basically this one did not dissipate because this is an F5. It did not go back
It's
into
not going anywhere. Yeah.
It's still just going. And Jonas starts to go after it. Does not, again, has no instincts. Does not read the wind.
Yeah.
Does not see that it's shifted.
Right. And Bill radios him and like tries to warn him, and his driver is like, maybe we should listen to him, bro. He's like, nah, forget it. We're getting this score. And sure enough, this was bloody too.
Yeah.
It could have been.
'Cause-
This was some Final Destination shit.
Because they got close enough to where some sort of metal
It's like a radio tower or something almost.
tower
Yeah.
structure thing runs through the truck.
Like impales it.
So they're for sure dead.
Yeah.
Before they even get picked up by the tornado.
Yeah. This was brutal.
And we breezed past it. Well, not
Yeah.
really. I mean, Bill loses it a little
They
bit.
sit on it for a minute and
Bill absolutely is like torn up about it. He
Yeah.
feels guilty. He feels upset because this was their former colleague. They were buddies.
Yeah, he's
at
an
one point.
asshole, but it's not like he deserves to die or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And Joe is like, we did all we could. It's we got to move on.
So then,
Which I think is good. It shows her development. It's
Yeah.
kind of in a tiny little way where she's like, at this point, it's in the past now. We got to go.
yes,
You know what I mean? It's
instead of obsessing over it happening. So she's like, we have one last shot. And
Yeah.
so she gets in the back, she straps down the very last one.
Yeah. So they're driving into it. This is when like the house falls in between them.
Yes. So also, the house.
and
Oh,
Bill
man.
is like, we're going in. They just
Yeah.
drive through the house.
What this movie does really well is keep you from dwelling on the stuff that you don't have time to dwell. You just keep going. And so you see him die, and then the next thing you know, you see Bill driving through a house.
Yeah.
Like driving down a staircase, driving through a house. And it's
Yeah.
and just, kind of Dukes of Hazzard busting through it on the other side.
Yeah. I imagine them coming up with each of these sequences and being like, okay, we need some things to happen in each one of these. This one's going to have cows. This one's going to have the 2 twisters. Let's make them drive through a house in this one. So like the creativity of it to like, how do we keep it interesting each time?
Yeah.
How do we change it up? What are the obstacles each time is
Right.
really, and the fact that they don't run out of anything
Oh, yeah.
in what you would think is kind of like a boring Midwest, like it's just open. There's nothing out there. They still find
They prove
things.
that there's so much out there. There's so much material to be used, and clearly it's stuff that they like either built or had like actual things that they used.
Yeah.
So very cool stuff. So as they're going through that, she starts to fix. She's already done that actually. She's already fixed the Dorothy. But we didn't get any sort. Did you pick up a signal in which they were like the truck is going to be gone for this last one?
I don't think so. Or like that was part of the plan. If it was, it certainly wasn't communicated to the crew because they keep radioing them even after the truck is gone.
Yeah.
So it seems like maybe they were like, we don't have time to deploy it properly.
This
We just
is
got to
what
drive it
This
through.
is just what it is.
Yeah. So they drive through like
Like-
straight back into the cornfield. They just ditch the truck and they just let the
He
truck
sets the
cruise.
cruise control.
And they let it cruise
So he
straight
does
into
say
it.
that. He
Yeah.
does say that. So you
Yeah.
know that this is not just some freak of nature that they're able to do. Like there's a realistic way to do this.
Right.
He sets the cruise control. This is where she gets injured. She may have gotten a concussion. Is because
When they jumped out.
the wind was actually happening when they jumped out, and so she had opened the door, and instead of holding on to it, like you would with wind, she didn't. She opened it, and it came and slammed her back in the head.
Bonked her back in. Mm-hmm. Damn.
So Helen Hunt may have been injured specifically in this moment.
Gotcha.
But you see her kind of hold on to it in the scene, and they jump out.
There's a great. I like the sound design here because the Dorothy sensors do finally work. We finally see the payoff of them. They fly up in the thing and
They light up.
They light up.
And they light up into a Pepsi logo.
Oh, did they? That's funny.
Yeah,
but
that's part of the trivia.
They have this little wind chime sound to them. That's just like a beautiful little sound that just tickles your brain.
Yeah.
And there's a great shot of the two of them in the cornfield, like centered in the cornfield, and it's like
just
this
kind of holding on to each
angle
other.
is beautiful here, and
in awe of finally seeing the culmination of their life's work.
Yeah,
working.
They pull it off, and they look at the pride in their faces is just palpable.
As they're standing there, they start getting the radios back in of the crew seeing it start to work. You start to see the sensors start to blend into a funnel on the screens.
Yeah,
rudimentary as they are compared to our day and age, but
they
were advanced for their time.
Yeah, no, and it works at giving you like a visual indication of like what it looks like top down type stuff. Yeah,
right. But then they realize they're directly in the fucking path.
It's gonna come back. Yeah.
So now they have to take off running.
Right.
They take off sideways. Mind you, we have had it mentioned to us at least twice that pre this moment that thing is a mile wide.
Ugh.
So like.
They're
Can
in
you
it.
run a mile that fast? Like, but they do.
I can't.
I can't. They cut through the cornfield. They get to some horses.
Yeah, they're at a farmhouse barn, and they go into the barn, and the barn's full of like, just
full of all these metal
full of stabbies.
Tools. Yeah, and she's like, "Who are these people?" And he's like, "I don't
They're
think
like,
so."
this is the wrong place to be.
And they take off again. Make it to some sort of well house type thing where there's it's the irrigation system shed basically, and they belt themselves conveniently. There's some belts in there.
Yeah,
they belt themselves to the pumps or to the pipes.
Yeah, because he's like these goes down like 30 feet. Like this should be hopefully secure enough.
So it's definitely a well irrigation type system, groundwater ish thing.
And this is great visually because it's like it pulls out and you see the entire farmhouse and stuff, and you see like the barn like get torn apart. You see how tiny they are, and it's just so this is the culmination of it. This is the final one, and
then you look up, you get from a ground up look shot.
Yeah, so they're getting like pulled away by it, and finally,
and they're literally vertical.
They're vertical. Yeah, they're like doing headstands basically.
Yeah,
and Joe.
We see this kind of shot as well in Pirates of the Caribbean.
With the Maelstrom, maybe?
At World's End.
Trying to remember. I have a visual of what you're talking about.
It's when they have to flip the ship, and they're in underwater and holding on like this. Same thing.
Gotcha.
Same kind of shot.
But the lighting here is good. It does like the lightning thing too, where it just like lights them up every couple seconds and stuff. So it's this kind of like epileptic thing going on. But we see Joe finally see like straight in the center of the funnel of that, like she was saying earlier, like I want to see it. I want to be in the middle of it.
And she finally gets to.
Yeah, it's a beautiful payoff here, and we like, man, it's intense. You still don't know if they're gonna make it really too.
But the core passes directly over them. You even see the light of day on the other side of it, and it's just such a cool shot.
Yeah. It's the culmination of the whole thing, and damn, it's beautiful. So it passes over. Finally, they're okay. They're drenched, and we see a family exit from
it's their storm cellar.
From their storm cellar, which is kind of like a mirror of Joe's backstory
the
at the
beginning of this movie.
And Bill even has a line here where he notices that, like, he says it didn't take the house. The actual farmhouse is still there,
right?
Which Joe had an earlier line in their rainy argument scene where he's
it'll touch one house, but it won't touch the next.
Yeah, but then it chooses yours to take. Again, like you were saying, just the random chance of it and stuff. And so that's where she's all pissed about. And so again, it's a great little. We don't need to like know this family. We don't need to like spend all the time with that. But it's important for Joe that these people were spared.
Yep.
that like these people made it out.
And they made it out, and we're still able to map the thing.
And now that we have the research to do it,
They've got all the
know.
data. And in true Bill and Joe fashion, they start arguing about who's going to do the analysis, which is funny to me because, you know, you would think that that's where the fun would be. I mean, I understand, you know, there's more tactile stuff in a lab, but like you would think that the fun part would be the discovering of being able to put together. To me, that's the thing that would be fun, is putting the pieces of the puzzle together now that you have puzzle pieces to put together, is to be able to make that discovery. And she's like, we gotta apply for grants, this, that, and the third, you know, all these things that come with research. And he's like, I'm not doing the analysis. This is not me.
Yeah.
And he starts fighting her on it, and they just start bickering.
Well, I like it too because he doesn't formally say that like
I'm back.
I'm back.
No,
Like,
he's
just-
always been back.
he's just
He's
back
been
in.
back from the minute.
Yeah, she is just like, we've got work to do. Like she just assumes he's in, and she's right, he's in.
Yeah, how are you not?
Right. So it's so unspoken. There's no, you know, ceremony, I guess, about like he's back. You know, it's just of course he's back.
Right.
The crew pulls up and finds him alive and well, and they all kind of clap and cheer when of course they finally kiss and re-cement the reconciliation of the whole thing. And we pull out beautiful like overhead pan shot.
Which I pointed out would have been a really cool, easily done drone shot, but we didn't have drones back then.
No.
So you mentioned it might have been a helicopter that
Probably a
that was
helicopter.
what this was.
A lot of this I imagine was.
Or a very large crane.
Maybe, yeah. But we see the destruction this thing has wrought.
Because everything but that one house is flat.
Yeah. So, man, so that's Twister. Beautiful, beautiful movie. This one might be, we'll get into it now with our ratings. This one might be in all 5, but let's get into it.
All right. Plot.
Plot? Do I want to do 5? It's so, I don't know. I guess I will do 5. Because it's a little, maybe 4.5, because my only gripe is there's no reason Bill couldn't just wait until she's done to do the divorce papers. He doesn't need to chase after her and do them today. He can wait until like this day passes and come back tomorrow. That's the only kind of hole I can find in the plot. Other than that, and I can still even chalk that up to like, well, he's just as obsessive as she is. It doesn't really matter. But that's pretty much the only hole I can find. Other than that, it's pretty good. Like it's simple. Like I said, the pacing of it, I love. I love the formula.
You loved the music.
I loved I like how the music that kind of goes into production. But 4.5 for me.
I'm going to say 4.8.
Okay.
Uh,
You're just adding points now. Just adding decimals.
No. It's an average score. But it comes to that for me purely because of the just this point too of you had Carrie Elwes and you didn't use him.
That too. That was going to be my other one. Is that like I would have liked a little bit more.
I feel like
Jonas.
everybody else had a really, and I'm sure he had good stuff. The other thing too is that as I was reading in the trivia, originally it was pitched to be a rated R, and they shot it as a rated R, and then they cut it down to be PG-13.
Wow.
And that to me, understandable.
I wonder what the new one's rated.
I think that's a really good point.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's R. I feel like, but who knows?
But to me, it detracts from the.
How intense it could have been.
Yeah.
How much more intense, I guess I should say.
And really, it seems like even from the rating cut down that it was because of
Language.
and that's it. And it's
Yeah.
like it wasn't.
I
It
was
wasn't the
thinking that.
intensity. It wasn't the violence. It wasn't any of that. It's just cussing.
Yeah. Which
Okay.
that's typical Americanism.
Yeah. Twisters is PG-13 as well,
Okay.
in
All right.
keeping with
Gotcha. It doesn't need to be. It doesn't need it. But yeah. But there are moments where I'm like, someone would be yelling "fuck" right now.
There's absolutely somebody yelling "fuck,"
But
because it's life or death. But anyways, whatever. Go ahead.
what are we at? Performance.
Performance 5.
Yeah, I'm at 5 too. Not a bad one. Philip Seymour Hoffman, great comic relief, which I feel like we don't usually
This is
get from
the
him. but,
most fun I've seen him be.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Is like usually he's just a good dramatic guy. This one he's like funny. The fact
Yeah.
that he can still be funny and good is like that's a real talent.
Yeah, and then you've got just like all of the even any screen time that any character had was not wasted.
No, you like the supporting cast
Yes.
is great. Like they're used sparingly but effectively. Melissa is a great, like we said, like she's very likable in spite of like the role that you'd think that she would play.
Right.
Helen Hunt, love her quiet intensity.
Yes.
Love her 1,000-yard stares. Love her just like palpable sadness.
All of these characters had a depth to them that was understated in the sense that it wasn't like overstated, but also effective.
They all feel very real.
Yes.
It all just has a groundedness that just really tracks.
No, and I believe that they're a real crew.
Yeah. No. Yeah. The chemistry is
This
just out
this
of this
could have been a
world.
documentary to me.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I totally see it. Yeah, you can see any of these characters on like a National Geographic show.
like this could have been based off a true story. This
Yeah.
could have been
Yeah.
a documentary, and I'd have been like, "Yep, this is actually absolutely what this is."
You're right. It feels like a Discovery Channel show. Like,
Well,
like the
you've got Bill
people-
Nye the Science Guy tips the whole way through.
Yeah. Yeah.
So definitely a 5 on performance for me.
Yep.
Same for
Production.
you?
Yeah. Same for me.
Okay, and then production. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'll call it 5.
Yeah.
I will call it 5. This is like
Because this is as you said earlier in the trivia, this is the one of the last greats made without a
Practical
lot of
effects,
without
yeah.
a lot of CGI.
yeah, and it's deliberate with it. It
But it
feels
works though. Is that there's nothing detracted from it because of that.
no. It's kind of a swan song of that whole period of like Jurassic Park type technology and that whole. Other than that one shot of the satellite. But,
That was
you
that,
know.
but that was just an establishing shot. That's
Yeah.
all it was.
No, but it's the lighting, the music I've talked about, the sparing the use of music to like carry us.
Contracting Van Halen to write songs for you for this production, like that's
Pretty
cool
badass.
as shit.
Pretty badass. I talked about where I like how like the music plays when they're chasing and then it cuts out during the quiet drama scenes and we just kind of hear whatever's
On the radio
on
around
the radio,
them.
which that adds something
scene.
that adds an ambience to where like no, you could not have music in there.
You
But I think
could.
it weirdly adds something that I can't even think of another movie that does that, where just a random song is playing in the background of a scene.
I can't think of
But
one either.
that too adds a realness to it. Where like
Oh,
in real
100%.
life, like a radio might be playing in the background, or like if you're at a restaurant, like music is, or if you're at the grocery store,
Well,
music's
yeah,
everywhere in the
there's
background.
Yes.
So that adds like a realism to it that also just contributes to the stakes of it.
Well, to quote you to you, where the lights come from is the same place the music's coming from.
yeah.
And in this particular case, we use the dark effectively as well. So
Yeah.
to speak to lighting, even though we burned Helen Hunt's and
Eyeballs
Bill
out.
Paxton's eyeballs,
Right.
that they did that effectively, and they used it as a device as opposed to just not having it.
Right.
Because there is a way to do a storm where it's just dark the whole time.
Well, and the darkness too also helps to mask whatever CGI they are using.
Right.
To where it's not like super bright and you can tell like, oh, that's not a real cow.
But
you
even
know?
in the darkness, it's still completely visible. It's still kind of backlit.
Right. It's not like the bad modern lighting that we hate nowadays.
Right.
It's still, and the lightning flashes add things to it. The hail, which I was reading, was very expensive for them to like generate that effect.
Oh, yeah.
So all the effects, everything feels real. Like the heaviness of the cars and stuff.
The creakiness of the metal cars.
the sound
fantastic.
design out of this world. So
Absolutely.
yeah, just absolute 5 on production.
Same.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Did we
So
do all of them?
this one's.
Yeah,
this
we
one's
just
not
like
all
this
5.
one. We love this one. This is the first one that I think I unambiguously loved, which again, like I said, like I was coming into this series not loving disaster movies as a genre. It's just not one that I'm super interested in.
Yeah.
But damn, I'm very pleasantly
Well, and then to the point of like we were sitting here and we were like, we have to see the second one now. Like we have to go see it in theaters.
right. I was like, we're Twister heads now. We just like
That's
this.
just what we are now.
Yeah.
This is who we are.
So we'll definitely see the new one, and maybe in the future come back to review that one because like, damn, this is
Do a ComCon on it.
There you go. Yeah, a little essay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Twister. Man, anything else?
Great kickoff to our disaster movie series.
Yep, we're firmly in the 90s. That's the other half of this. Is these are all 90s ones
We
we're
look
doing.
very 90s in our get-ups right now.
Right. We hope you enjoyed the promotional
Materials.
attempts we're trying to make with this series.
Follow us on Instagram to find those promotional materials.
Yep.
Instagram at Podcast of Critics.
We're on Twitter just at Cast of Critics, and we're on TikTok at Podcast of Critics 1.
And as always, thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for coming on this journey with us.
Yep. Twist and shout
Twist and shout.
if you like us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, hit up our DMs too.
Sure, right. And we'll be back next time with, we'll be taking a little bit of a peek at our next movie
For the second installment of
our
the disasters.
90s disaster movies series. So we are 90s babies, and we will see you.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't have a good one. Twisting on out of here. Goodbye.